Multiple shots of cold air are on the way, along with the increasing chance of winter weather across certain areas of the country. It's definitely a tricky weather pattern to figure out over the next couple weeks or so as we get into the early portion of December. And speaking of December, we'll speak a lot on it in this video. So my name is Mitch. Good Friday morning. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning. I know I am. I mean, it's Friday. I imagine most of us are feeling pretty good, right? So subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please drop it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So let's go over the latest from the Climate Prediction Center. We're going to speak on temperatures first, and then any kind of winter weather second, and then we'll speak deeper into December after that. But this is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. So the actual experts, and this runs from the 26th to the 30th. So that Thanksgiving time frame as we get into next week and a little after. So if you live in this blue area, this is where they're leaning towards below average temperatures. If you live in the warmer colors like the orange and even some red showing up, this is where they're leaning towards above average temperatures in this time frame. So if you notice, a good chunk of the northern Rockies and just about all the middle of the country and a large section of the eastern U.S. going for below average temperatures or around near normal temperatures. Now you got areas of the southeast going with above average temperatures. Now if we extend this from the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, which runs from the 28th to the 4th of December, so we're getting into December now, a good chunk of the country they're saying should be below average as far as temperatures, at least a chance at it. Now the southeast hanging on for dear life with the southeast ridge, and we'll speak on that as we make our way deeper into the video and why that is showing up. But a large area of the country going for a chance of below average temperatures. Now I want to show you this really quick, don't want to stay on it long. This is the week 3 to 4 temperature outlook. This was issued literally a week ago. So a new one will get issued today, this afternoon. And honestly, I am very antsy to see what this shows, because this will extend from December 5th through about the 19th of December. This one, the 29th through the 12th, because it was issued a week ago. But the next one, like I said, the 5th through the 19th of December. So this extends past the ensemble guidance that I'm about to show you. So are they going to show a signal for knocking back this ridge? I really hope they do, because of course we don't want to waste too much of December with above average temperatures in the southeast, right? Unless you're just a big warm weather fan, you don't care a lick about colder temperatures around the holidays or winter weather chances. I know I care. So I'm definitely hoping for a colder holiday period. It just makes it feel more festive, right? But let's go on and just see what's backing all this up from the Climate Prediction Center. And this is the Euro AI Ensemble. And we're going to start this off with next Wednesday, the 26th. The warmer colors you see on your screen like this is above average temperatures, and then the cooler colors like the blue, and you'll see some areas of green show up. That's below average temperatures. So just think of warm, cold, right? Compared to average this time of the year. And this is starting off Thanksgiving Eve. So it looks like we're going to be dealing with a cold front sweeping across the country. Model Guidance is pretty much locked into this. Cold front number 1. We've been speaking like crazy on this over the last week, and the Euro AI model definitely locked in on this and really has not unlocked since, and other model runs have also now. So it looks like now, Thanksgiving Day should be quite chilly across areas of the central to eastern U.S. as a cold front will quite literally be making its way through this area Thanksgiving Eve into Thanksgiving. So we might have a chilly Thanksgiving now across areas of the eastern U.S. When we go back about a week, we weren't thinking that was going to be the case. It looks like it's going to be the case now. And you see this area in green is anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees below average. So a chilly 28th of November, and we start to get into the weekend, the last weekend of November, still hanging on to below average temperatures across the eastern U.S., but you do see a bit of a moderation as we start to get to around near normal if we kind of combine both below and above average in this area. But then you see a big signal for a lot of cold air as we get into the last day of November dropping down across the middle of the country. And I think what we're seeing in the and the higher latitudes and things like that really supports this. Well, a lot of blocking up there. We've been talking about the warming in the polar region could dislodge some really cold air, and I think this backs that up. Big Arctic frontal boundary, looks like drops down across the middle of the country. A lot of Arctic air to follow. And this is anywhere from 15, 20, maybe as much as 25 degrees below average. So I think we're going to have some deep Arctic air that really drops down late next week into next week in the last weekend of December. Now, in response to such a deep diving trough down to the western and central U.S., this is going to flex the ridge. It's almost like when you're jumping on a trampoline, right? You jump in the middle of it and the sides of it kind of go up as you jump in the middle. So that's kind of what the atmosphere is doing. So big trough diving down right in the middle of the country. This is going to cause the southeast ridge to flex. So we get the cold front late next week, but it immediately warms up right as we kickstart December. So we start to see above average temperatures dominating the eastern U.S. And I mean, it gets really warm, guys. So we get a big temperature gradient somewhere in the Midwest. I mean, the south central U.S., well below average temperatures across the middle of the country. Well above average temperatures, or at least several degrees above average across the eastern U.S. And, as we start to get a few days into December, does that cold air begin to bleed east and beat down that southeast ridge? I think it does. And we get all the way to the last panel here, and you can see that cold air starts to overspread the northeast again, and some changes begin to occur. So we just got to watch this. And, if we do look at like one operational run from the Euro AI model here, and, we're going to start this off with, this is Tuesday, November the 26th. And you're going to see, this is that first cold front, right? This is a new site I'm using. I really like it here. So we're going to have an opportunity here for some below freezing temperatures. This is the morning of, heck, I think this is, this is getting into Thanksgiving Eve, Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a chilly day. What day is it? I'm brain farting here. So, Thanksgiving is the 26th here. No, Thanksgiving is the 27th. Sorry, brain farting a little bit there. But this is getting into Friday morning. You can see some really chilly temperatures spreading across the eastern U.S. But, nothing too crazy. I mean, this is, in my opinion, just an average late November cold front. But as we continue to move forward, I think it'll be a chilly weekend, the next weekend, the last weekend of November. And then you see a lot of cold air drop down across the middle of the country. This is getting into the 30th. This is getting into December 1st. And for example, I mean, this is the morning of December 1st. And look at these below zero temperatures dropping down across the Rockies. This is just one operational run, but look at this crazy temperature gradient down here into Texas. I mean, we're into the single digits into the panhandle of Texas and into the 70s in the morning time of December 1st along the Texas coastline. So, a bunch of cold air drops south, but then the southeast ridge begins to flex, and you can see how we get warmer than average temperatures. Quite literally can see the southeast ridge based off these temperatures here. So very cold air. I mean, this is getting into the morning of the 3rd, and this is really far out, but it really fits what we're seeing in the upper wind pattern pretty well. A lot of cold air diving down across the middle of the country. Now, any kind of storm systems we're really watching for, and I'm not super focused on this that much because model guidance is really everywhere on this. But if we started off, as we're getting into Thanksgiving week, this is Tuesday. We do got a storm system sweeping across the areas of the eastern U.S. I think this will mostly be rain. I do want to watch a stronger piece of northern stream energy, 998 millibar low. Some snow on the colder side. How much of that cold side will there be? Not sure, but this is getting into the 26th, right? This is getting into Thanksgiving at this point. And we do have cold air making its way through, but no significant storm systems. But I do want to watch this storm system up here. If you live up here in the upper Midwest, the upper Great Lakes region, day or two before Thanksgiving, want to watch for that system, but not a well-phased system or anything like that. And then, we start to get into the 28th, and then we get into the 29th. And this is when that Arctic boundary could begin to drop down. A lot of Arctic air associated with it, and we have some moisture associated with it. So, we get about a week or 8 days from now, and here comes that Arctic boundary dropping down. And the Euro AI model really likes the idea of a lot of moisture associated with it. And this is getting into, the 30th, the 1st. We don't want to get too hyper-focused on the actual day. But man, shows a wild setup. And normally when we get these Arctic boundaries and we get even just a touch of moisture associated with it, it can cause chaos. So if we do get any moisture associated with this Arctic front, we're going to get a crazy widespread winter storm to kickstart December or right to end November. But this is all rain across areas. Heck, maybe we even get some thunderstorms across the southeast. And we get into the second, we get into the third. And this is getting really too far out to really matter. And we do look at the Euro model here. It's the same thing. You know, we started off to around Tuesday. We got some moisture scattered across areas of the eastern U.S. And then we start to get into Wednesday. Most of the country looks quiet. It doesn't really favor the Euro AI model with that system up here being that strong. But, you know, we continue to move forward, and it does eventually show a system. It's just a day or two behind the Euro AI model. Some snow, you know, maybe as we are starting to get into next Friday, a week from today, across areas of Minnesota, you know, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, shows a little fast-moving clipper. And then it does show some energy associated with some cold Arctic air on the Euro, but it's definitely not as crazy as, say, what the Euro AI model is showing. But, you know, this is all the way out into the morning of December the 1st. Shows a weaker system up here. But, you know, I really think model guidance is really just trying to resolve the pattern in general. So there's no point in really focusing too crazy much on, you know, winter storm signals or anything like that. But if we do look at the Euro ensemble, we go all the way out to Thursday, Thanksgiving morning here. Not a really big signal for any snow, but then we do extend this all the way through the entirety of the run, which goes all the way out to, I mean, this goes all the way out to about the 5th of December. And you can see how everything begins to fill in more between Thanksgiving and about the 5th of December. And this makes sense to me. It's not a forecast for snow, so if, you know, you're hanging out in, say, Amarillo and think there's going to be 2-3 inches of snow, that's not a guarantee. It's not a forecast, just an ensemble run. And then we look at the eastern U.S. So we start off, once again, Thanksgiving morning, not a real big signal for snow. But then you can see the Great Lakes region, lake effect snow belt areas begin to fill in with some cold Arctic air spilling through. And this could make sense. If we got cold air going over those Great Lakes, we're going to get some lake effect snows. And then we take it all the way out to about the 5th on this also. And you can tell how everything begins to fill in. But the southeast, I mean, there's not going to be any early season winter weather chances. And a lot of times, guys, in the south, you don't get a lot of winter weather in December. But as we get into the later half, things could begin to change. And all this fits the pattern very well. You see the blue area, that's a trough of low pressure. This is going to bring cold air down. Sometimes can bring a storm system, but not always guaranteed. But this is lower pressure. And then you see this area right here. This is higher pressure. So, of course, this is going to swoop some cold air down. That's not what I wanted to do here. This is going to bring some cold air down. Makes sense. You got blocking up here. This dislodges cold air down to this trough. So we're going to have a cold front to follow that's going to bring a chilly air mass as we get into later next week and to our Thanksgiving period. And then that, you know, goes back up, and what happens after that? Another big trough drops down across the western to central U.S. And this makes sense also because if you look right here, we got a big negative EPO blocking up into Alaska that sets up. That's going to dislodge cold air down into this trough, this area in blue. And we could have a storm system also, but if you notice, we got this nasty ridge setting up across the eastern U.S. Because, remember I just talked about how the trough deep dives and it causes everything around it to kind of go up. And here it is. That goes up as this goes down. So literally goes down, other sides go up. Kind of like when you're jumping on a trampoline. Imagine jumping on a trampoline in slow motion and how the areas around where you're jumping go up as you go down. So that's kind of like how the pattern works, the upper pattern, the weather works, right? So when you have such a deep diving trough, that happens. And, you know, as we continue to move forward, all this blue right here could provide a storm system, but it's definitely going to bring down a lot of cold air. Cross-polar flow setting up. Got the blue showing up over here. And, you know, we got to get a negative EPO up here in Greenland. So some blocking up here. This will help. This will definitely help get rid of this ridge. And right now, I mean, this is definitely not, there's not any blocking up there. So, but as we start to get to the end of the run, we get several days in December, really a few days, to December 3rd. We're still hanging on to some ridging into the southeast, but you can tell this trough begins to slowly you know, very slowly try to bleed a little bit east. But even at the end, as we get several days into December, we're still hanging on to that southeast ridge. But this is still a pattern. But it looks like, we might have the return of some blocking in Greenland, negative NAO. But we continue to have ridging up into Alaska over areas of the western U.S. So this will continue to just support a feed of cold air down here. It's just, where is this going to go? And for us in the eastern U.S., southeast, can we get rid of this? Can this get beat down so we can get some of this cold air also that it looks like everybody else is going to get? So, moving past that time frame and extending this deeper into December, all right, all we have to look at is the Euro weeklies, right? So kind of starting off where we left off with what I just showed you. Once again, big blob of blue, cold air feed dumping down to the lower 48. Okay, we got blocking up into here. And we got this big trough diving down, very broad. I mean, it's long, okay? Cold air continuously feeding down into this. But where is our storm track going to be? If something like this sets up as we get several days into December, I mean, these X's are low pressure. It's probably going to be like this, okay, or like this. This little ridge nudge is just going to keep the southeast on the warm side. But as we continue to move forward, you can tell some of that ridging begins to back off and we get more ridging out west. Trough kind of bowls out more so over the northeast and the Ohio Valley, Midwest areas of the mid-Atlantic. Now we still have that ridge nudge right here. So I really think this is going to promote more so like clippers diving down into here. Might tap into a little bit of southern energy, but we continue to move forward here. And as we start to get, I don't know, about mid-December, which we keep talking about, it looks like we finally just take away that southeast ridge. This is getting into mid-month. Let's just call it that. We got ridging. We got this trough setting up, but it's not a deep trough. But, I mean, this is way out. You're not going to expect this to, just show up with perfection. It's kind of smoothed out, if you will. But this is a better look. We got some blocking up here. We got blocking in the higher latitudes. Cold air feed dumping down here. So, it definitely looks much better as we get closer to Christmas time. Much better. In fact, that looks a lot better. So how does this respond to the surface as far as temperatures? Well, first off, I'll say we don't know, but we can look at this and try to figure it out. And as we get the first week into December, the 1st to the 8th, okay, we're leaning towards above average temperatures across the deep south. But I mean, look, most of the country is below average though, and there is some sort of gradient right into here. And this makes sense based off where that trough is setting up. I really think we're going to be dealing with a wild temperature gradient to kickstart December. And unfortunately, if you're a winter weather and cold weather fan across the deep south and southeast, it looks like we're going to start off on the warm side, and this reflects this. And, as we start to get about to the mid-month time frame, you can see some of these above average temperatures fade away. And then as we start to get closer to Christmas, the week leading up to Christmas, it looks like the eastern U.S., as we get into the second half of December, really starts to get into this blue, which is below average temperature. So, if we look at the snowfall signal here, this is between now and December the 5th for the central U.S. This is what it looks like. But look, as we extend this out even further to the 21st, and you can see how everything shifts down, and then these areas begin to fill in a lot more. Same thing with the eastern U.S. Not a big signal really anywhere except for these favorite areas in the Northeast. And I think the Northeast could get into some action. And if you're tuning in for the Northeast and you think I'm being a Debbie Downer for any winter weather or cold weather, fans, actually, you guys in this pattern coming up are somewhat favored, not a super favorable pattern. In the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region, this favors you guys. But just there's going to be some sort of gradient, like between not favorable and favorable. And you just got to figure out what side you're on to kickstart December. So, the Northeast looking like some good snows, potentially, depending on where you live between now and the early portion of the month. But it's really as we start to extend this through the middle portion of the month up into Christmas week, you can see there's a big change here. You look at this and then you look at that. Everything bogs down here. So, not a forecast. So, don't view this as so. So, at the end of the day, I keep harping on the MJO. We can talk about the sun stratospheric warming until we're blue in the face, and, this is going to work in tandem with the MJO, meaning depending on what phase of the MJO we are in, that's where the cold air will probably drop from all the blocking up in the Arctic region. So if we look at the Euro extended here, okay, and we do have an updated one. All right, and once again, we'll explain this for any newcomers. Let's make this a little bit smaller so it's a little bit clearer here. And let's make sure we got our right colors, and let's use this. So if we look at this here, 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. These MJO phases, these are majority, this is mostly warm phases. So these are the warm phases, and I will tell you, you can still get shots of cold air in these MJO phases, especially with 7, which is what we're about to work into, and definitely 3. But 4, 5, and 6, most of the country is dominated by warm air. Now, as we get into 8, 1, and 2, these are favorable cold and winter weather phases as we get into winter. So where are we and where are we heading? Okay, so I keep clicking off that. We are right in this jumbled up mess right here. So if you look really closely, you see 8, 10, that's November 8th, November the 10th. Okay, that's obviously behind us, and we're into the 21st. And really the progression is really getting jammed up and tangled up right in here. So we're right in this tangled up mess. As we move over the next week, you see that 25, that's November the 25th. You see that 27, that's November the 27th. It shows us finally getting untangled here. Not literally, but on this, it definitely looks like it's tangled up and getting into phase 7. We're in phase 6 right now. So 27, 29, that's November. That 1 and 3 you see right here, that's of December. So as we get close to Thanksgiving, we start to ride through phase 7 into the early portion of December. All right, so phase 7 does support cold air down into the lower 48. It favors a lot of ridging in the eastern and especially the southeastern U.S., which backs up what we're seeing on model guidance. It backs it up very well. In fact, I'm actually very impressed on how model guidance is responding to what's being forecasted off the MJO here on the Euro Extended. Okay, but it shows us quickly racing through phase 7 a lot faster than how long we'll hang out in phase 6. So, it shows us eventually into the 5th of December getting to phase 8. That is the glory phase in December for cold and winter weather chances across especially the central to eastern U.S. But then it shows us getting tangled up and bordering phase 7 and phase 8 for almost 2 weeks, 10 days or so. We need to fully get this. You see how it shows the 19th, 17th, getting fully into phase 8. We need to really progress through this and really slow down. So it does show us getting to that favorable phase about a week into December, but does it fully get into it, or does it kind of just hang out around phase 7 and phase 8? If you're a winter weather and cold weather fan, you really want this to really slow ride through phase 8 and phase 1 through December into the early portion of January. And there's a chance to do that. That's why I've been talking about there's such a high ceiling for late December into early January. So these are the favorable phases, especially 8. And it shows us heading in that direction. There's a tangle up right here that's been starting to show up. There's 2 things that's changed with this over the last week. One, we're speeding through phase 7 a lot faster and getting to phase 8. But a new thing that we're seeing is it getting tangled up in this area right here. It's a tough thing to forecast, guys. Very tough. We just got to see how the progression is. And, speaking on, what the MJO phase means to what we're dealing with when we walk outside, right? Temperatures. If we look at what is this? This is the October through December. Phase 7 supports exactly what it shows right here. Okay, you see phase 7, I know the resolution on this is very blurry, but it shows a lot of warmer temperatures across the southeast, eastern U.S., and it shows a lot of cold across the middle of the country, upper areas of the country. And that backs up exactly what we're seeing on ensemble guidance. It's crazy. And then we look at this. Okay, this is November, December, and January. And since December's kind of the middle ground month that we're about to get into, I think that's the best thing to show. And we look at phase 8. If we can get into phase 8, in December, it shows widespread cold across the central to eastern U.S. So that is what we need to get into to really knock the ridge down, guys. So let's move into today's weather. Big chunk of rain scooting across the middle of the country. You can see it here. I mean, much needed rain. There's a low pressure kind of across the middle of the plains. We got some snow riding across the upper portions of the Northeast. We got moisture down here. And we got this swirling trapped low down here in Southern California. So that's what's going on right now. If we continue to move, a lot of dense fog across areas of the country indicated by the gray counties here and parishes. Well, actually, Louisiana is not included in this, so I shouldn't say parish. But we got some flood watches up here down here in central Texas, and we got some alerts across the west. We do have a risk of severe weather across areas of Middle Tennessee down to Alabama, Mississippi for this afternoon to this evening. So be aware of that. There is even a 2% risk of a tornado. So, be aware of some of these storms. We'll talk about that here in a second. And the risk of flash flooding. Not much of one today, except if you live in southern areas of California, southwestern Arizona. The southeast today, we do have some widespread moisture moving in, much needed rain. Some rain will, move into your area in Kentucky, areas of Tennessee, and then we see these thunderstorms developing. You can see a little bit of a hook in some of these storms in Mississippi. So this is getting into about the early portion of the afternoon today. And just watch out for these widespread thunderstorms. Jackson, Meridian, Hattiesburg, definitely some storms in this. So eventually moving to Alabama, even southern areas of Middle Tennessee later on this evening. So just be aware of these thunderstorms today. And once we get up here, some much needed rain could move east of the Appalachian Mountains into the Carolinas and Virginia. We could use some rain, and we still got these ongoing thunderstorms up here across the Mid-South too as we getting into later tonight. So whoever sees rain, definitely embrace it, enjoy it, because I know at my house it has not rained since late October. Has not rained any measurable rain in the month of November, and here we are on the 21st. So up here in the Northeast, we got some snow, festive flurries up here in northern Maine. To the south, a little bit too warm for any widespread snow, but not a lot of moisture to work with anyways. And here comes some moisture moving into southern areas of PA, New Jersey as we're waking up tomorrow morning, mid-Atlantic, things like that. South central U.S., we got moisture up here swirling around here in Kansas, southern Nebraska, northern Missouri, getting into Illinois, and maybe some additional thunderstorms could develop in eastern Texas later on this afternoon. And most of this energy begins to progress outward, but we got a lingering boundary here in southeastern Texas that could continue to promote some thunderstorms, downpours in southeast Texas. And then we look at the north central U.S., and we do got some moisture bubbling up, but it's kind of being suppressed somewhat and probably will not move very far north. But if you live in the mid-Atlantic, northern Missouri, areas of central to southern Illinois, Indiana points south, Ohio points south, you can see an area of moisture kind of surging through later tonight. And then the western U.S., we continue just to have trapped energy spinning around. So Southern California will continue to get a feed of moisture in this region and things like that. Just literally a trapped low pressure down here embedded in this ridge. Temperatures, the southern tier of the country, very warm. There is a gradient of temperatures. That is going to be a big storyline over the next 2 weeks, is temperature gradients, in my opinion. Northeast, cold still. South, warm. This is what it looks like across the west. And yeah, that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll continue to try to figure all this out. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon.